Welcome to Reimagine Childhood, brought to you by Early Childhood Christian Network, where we equip you with the tools you need so you can confidently care for and teach young children. We know you want to provide the very best early childhood experience for children and their parents. But sometimes you feel frustrated and ill-equipped because the training required is not interesting, or it's just not applicable to your daily needs in the classroom. In every episode, we reveal practical, applicable strategies to use in your classroom that will create a lasting impact and will help children build the foundations they need for a lifetime of success. It's time to reimagine our approach to childhood. I'm your host, Monica Healer. My guest today is Jennifer Howington. She serves as Associate Director and Childhood Ministry Specialist in the Texas Baptist Discipleship and Next Gen Ministries Group. Yikes, that is a big title, but listen, Jennifer is passionate about effective ministry with young children, and she's an equipper and an encourager to many children's and preschool ministry leaders throughout the state of Texas. She's my friend and is constantly cheering me on as well. She's an adjunct professor at Howard Payne University and Dallas Baptist University. She's also working on a doctoral degree through New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. This girl does not have free time, y'all. She is busy, but you're going to love her. Let's dive into this conversation about screen time and child development. Jennifer Howington, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Monica. It's good to be here.
Well, we are talking about something that you and I both have dug into over this last year, and that is screen time for parents, children, and teenagers. This generation of kids growing up now, we would call them digital natives. Let's start there. Talk about the generations and how that fits in with technology.
Yes, so you mentioned digital natives. I'm a Gen Xer.
Sure.
Means we were not born into technology. We know a time when we didn't have cell phones, believe it or not. I know we look young, but when we didn't have cell phones like we do today. And
Yeah.
so we were digital immigrants. Your Gen Y or millennials, Gen Z, which is basically your adolescence, early college age, and certainly your Gen Alphas are all digital natives. So
Yeah.
technology has been here. This is all they've ever known. And so it's really hard. As a Gen Xer, I'm raising two Gen Zs. Their world is so different than the world I grew up in. And I have to remind myself of that sometimes, that they're seeing the world from a different lens in a different culture.
I think you and I both grew up in the 80s. So when we think about the way we spent our free time or the way our relationships were formed, even how we handled stress or anxiety, it is very different than what our kids are experiencing now. I didn't spend hours scrolling on a phone. I was a reader, so I would spend hours in my room, maybe reading a book, but my friendships were face-to-face and in person, and I only could build relationships if we were together physically, and that's just not the case.
That's true. I remember our time on the playground when we were in elementary school. That was face-to-face time, and we developed strong relationships and slumber parties. As girls, we always have slumber parties. My husband, he grew up on a cul-de-sac, and he would spend all his childhood years outside. His friends, he knew that when the sun came down, it was time to come home and dinner was ready. Mom and dad didn't worry about him when they were doing things like climbing trees and building forts and rafts down the creek, all these different things that our children never got to experience.
So much of that is so different. And I think we're seeing now, which is what you and I really will talk about, is there's an increase in anxiety in this generation of teenagers and young adults right now. And audience, we will get to preschoolers here in a minute, but I think it's important for us to talk about this. There's been a marked increase in anxiety since 2010. So talk about that, Jennifer. What happened?
A lot happened. Honestly, the world changed. Technology has had a factor in that, but with technology came more awareness of the world. When we were growing up, we had TVs in our homes, but life wasn't centered around media. It was centered around relationships. There were things we knew and didn't know, and our parents protected us from things, monitored what information flow we had until we were ready to hear things. Kids these days with technology and having a phone or a laptop or a Chromebook have access to everything that's going on in the world. or you can just turn on the news and it has all bad information and scary things. And so it's created a fear and a mistrust of the world that we really didn't carry.
For sure. I definitely think young children, I mean, we know now, right? Like children, I think there was a Common Sense Media Report, the 2025 Common Sense Early Childhood Media Report. They interviewed a bunch of parents, and over 40% of 2-year-olds have their own tablet.
Wow.
So when you look at that, screen time is starting very early. A 2-year-old, we think they're not going to be able to click on anything. Some parents are trying to protect their children and put parental controls on things, but the result is that our brains are being rewired. And that's interesting terminology. I first heard that brains are being rewired from the book by Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious Generation, which I know you've read it. It's a shocking word, right? Our brains are being rewired from early childhood on based on what we're putting into our minds. That should concern all of us. Creating habits within our brains, the neural connections that are being formed are not being formed with real people. We're watching shows we think are educational or interactive, but you're not talking to a 3D person. You can never answer wrong and deal with consequences because they're always going to give you positive feedback in the video. There's a rewiring happening that we need to take seriously at all ages.
Children are hearing things they're developmentally not ready to handle. With our adult brains, we can process information and know what's true and be able to fact check. The child hears something, they're going to accept it as truth, even it may not be. And so I think it's a call to monitoring more, but it's pervasive. Technology's everywhere. Even families that choose to have a technology-free home can't completely shelter your child from it. They're going to have it at school. They're going to have it with friends. They're going to have it. You go to you can't completely shelter from it. So how do we navigate through this culture and protect our children who are not ready to hear such things?
What a great question.
I think first we have to recognize that it's a problem. Increase in anxiety, as you mentioned, The Anxious Generation, that's a great book to read. It really sets out the research, but not only increase in anxiety, but also depression. With media presence, social media has been very detrimental for girls, especially who form their identities based on responses or in comparison to other adolescents their age. It's been devastating. We need to be mindful of what it's doing and acknowledging that it's a problem first, and then deciding how we handle it moving forward.
Let's talk about how you think screen time is affecting our young children and what we can do about it. What do we do for our preschoolers and even young elementary age kids?
So you said earlier, when we were younger, we had relationships. We had that face-to-face, synchronous relationships. I remember being on the playground playing with the hand games, the pat a cake game.
Yep.
Bubblegum in a dish. Yeah, I bet we could try that sometime.
Next time we have lunch.
But we had those. It was just built into what we were and what we did. And so now children, they don't know what they're missing. And it's not entirely their fault. They're in a world and a culture where the norm now is social media, texting, calling each other on the phone, our social media. And so it's redefining relationships in a negative way. I think part of the things that we can do as teachers, as ministry leaders, is to facilitate more the relationship aspect, because we're still human beings. We were created for relationship. We were created for community. And so that need is there, only it's not being fulfilled through media purposes. It's kind of a false sense of connectivity, if you will.
I feel like what we're seeing right now is this impact of those early years of social media. I don't know if we said this directly, but 2010, the iPhone was when Facebook came out, right? Is that correct? 2010 or 2012, I can't remember exactly, but early 2010s, right?
Yeah.
Facebook came out, iPhone came out with their front-facing camera so that you could start taking selfies. Adolescents in 2010, guess who they are in 2025? Some of our young parents right now, starting to raise their own families. We have a generation of young parents that's insecure in their relationships, finding their own value in their social media content. When you look at influencers, most of them are in that 20s to early 30s. They're building their careers there, which, I mean, cool. What an amazing way to build a career. But they feel a ton of pressure to document a very perfect life. That's not realistic. And I think that's going to impact our young children that are being raised in these homes. Moms are distracted. And hear me say this with compassion and empathy. This is real. Moms that are nursing their babies are watching a Netflix show on their phone while they're nursing instead of that face-to-face, I'm looking at my baby. I'm having this serve and return. I'm in tune with what my baby is doing right now. I'm nursing my baby, or even bottle feeding. You're feeding your baby, but you're distracted by social media and Netflix. When I nursed my babies 20-something years ago, I also would often read a book or watch a show on television. So again, not with judgment, but just saying there's less interaction with young parents and their children right now. I think that's going to continue for a few more years. I think right now, what we're seeing is a group of us, like parents, Gen Xers, maybe some millennials who are going, whoa, screen time maybe wasn't as great as we thought it was. I do think there's a little bit of a shift, our media use in that little bit older generation. And in some of the Gen Z kids. I am seeing a lot of Gen Z kids putting their phones away when they hang out. Hang up and hang out is a phrase I've heard used a lot by them. So I think there is a shift, but I think we're going to have this in-between time of children that are raised on screens, children that have access to too much media too early. And we're also in this early childhood world connecting with parents. Their brains have been wired to need constant reassurance. They don't know how to conflict resolve as adults, right? It's easy to cut off a relationship online. You just unfollow them and then you're done. Rather than thinking there might be a little conflict, so we might have to resolve that. Even with our children, I've heard from different preschools where if my child bites your child, I'm done with you. There's not a conversation about that. Maybe we need to help our children learn better social skills. It's really, I'm just cutting you off. Like, I don't need to be in relationship with you. Yeah. There's so many layers to this media use, Jennifer. I feel like we could probably spend hours digging through, but give me your thoughts on that with young parents right now.
Yes. I think Gen Z, Gen Alpha, there's a rise in individualism. It's all about the individual. Media has certainly fed into that, or made that even more intense. I think the challenge is, how do we create community when individualism is so prominent? I read a quote by Tim Elmore. He wrote a book called The Pandemic Population. He talks about this generation. He says, when our phones had leashes, we were free. Now our phones are free and we have leashes.
Growing up, I had a long cord that I wrapped around the corner and sat in the pantry so nobody could hear my conversation.
Yes, and that phone was normally in the family room where everybody was. So it was hard to have private conversations with the world, but we weren't tethered to that. When we left the house, we weren't on constant call, easily accessible. We had to come home and check the voice machine. Now our phones are with us everywhere we go. The challenge is real. I feel it for my generation, but I can't imagine what the younger generations must feel to hear the phone beep. There's a call or something coming through that might need my attention. I think I have to physically put my phone out of sight, out of mind to really detach from it. It is that connected to us. Having that phone with you constantly takes over and separates the community aspect of being with people. You're not fully present. I was driving through my community the other day, and it's a season where the football teams are practicing, little league fields, and there was a baseball little league field they were practicing. And I noticed a mom sitting there, and she had her phone on her ear the whole time. I thought, that mom is not fully present. She is missing out. Whatever she's taking care of. Now, she was not in the moment watching her child on the ball field. Me as a mom, I just sent my youngest to college. So I'm an empty nester now. I'm missing those days of being at the ball field and the practice games. These moments are fleeting, and we're missing out on some important aspects of life because of the phone and digital media. I don't think we're aware of it. We're just in the moment trying to take care of things as they come up. I love having a phone. I could sit here and do my grocery order and pick it up on my way home. I can do my taxes, check my work email, and I make a phone call to a friend. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's just how we use it. Does it control us, or do we control it?
I think that's an important distinction right there. Media is here to stay. I don't think technology is going away, but it's how we use it. I often feel like I'm too addicted to my phone. I will sit on the couch next to my husband at night and watch the Rangers game. Sorry, Astros fans. But we watch the Rangers game, and he will, he is watching the Rangers game. I am scrolling on social media. That's not me being fully present with him. That's me sitting next to him physically, but I'm not engaged with him or what he's watching on television. We're just physically next to each other. That's been a thing that he and I've talked about recently a lot. How can we be more intentional with each other? And again, we're in this empty nest stage. There's a shift in where our attention is. But I would say I am that mom you drove by. Even if I wasn't on the phone talking to somebody, I would have been scrolling on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest instead of being fully engaged with what was happening with my children or with the other moms sitting at practice. We're all scrolling on our phones.
I'm guilty too. Not being okay with being bored. I get anxious when I don't have something to do.
Yep.
And when I have some downtime, it's like I pick up the phone and then I've lost an hour and a half. How do we put that down and let ourselves be bored? If it happens to us as adults, more so for children in child development, boredom is the precursor to creativity. It's actually healthy for a child to be bored because then they get creative and think of games and ways to use their critical thinking skills. The technology is robbing us of those opportunities, creative, critical thinking skills, and socially as well.
Problem solving. Technology keeps us numb to all of that. It actually prevents our growth in those areas. Let's pause this amazing conversation for just a minute so I can share something fun. First, you have to get training hours every year, or maybe you're a lifelong learner and love training. You prefer to bounce ideas off other people who do what you do rather than just listening to a lecture. You'd love to hear from a real live trainer who's passionate about what they teach. And you want affordable training. And you want it all from a biblical perspective. We have the answer at Early Childhood Christian Network. Join us at one of our regional conferences throughout Texas. 6 hours of in-person training done for you in one Saturday. As low as $80 per person, and that includes lunch, y'all. High quality, engaging presenters who train from a biblical perspective. We're coming to a city near you. Tyler, Lubbock, Bryan College Station, Houston, and San Antonio this season. Go to earlychildhoodchristiannetwork.com and click on events for all the details. While we love connecting with you on this podcast, it would be even better to connect with you in person soon. Okay, let's talk a little bit about safetyism. I loved this terminology in the book, The Anxious Generation. So talk about what is safetyism and why do you think it's detrimental?
Yes. So I'm guilty of this too. Safetyism. Another term that's probably more familiar is helicopter parenting. It's wanting to create a safe space for children not to be harmed, not to experience disappointment or hurt in any way, physically or emotionally. But what we've done is we've sheltered them so much that they can't function. It's like the butterfly. When it's in a cocoon, if we were to go in and rip that cocoon and help that butterfly come out of that cocoon and fly, it would disable it. So the struggles of life, the falling down and skinning our knees, the failing that first test are actually helping us to learn how to succeed. I heard a quote, the people who climb trees and fall from trees become adults who are not afraid to climb trees. Taking risk and failing is okay because it helps you to succeed later. Safetyism is just parents sheltering their kids every step of the way, not letting them be independent, not letting them take risk in developing agency to where they can have confidence that they can do things on their own. And I've experienced this myself with my own children. I want them to have a happy life. I want them to succeed and have success, but I can't prevent them from the natural things that happen. If they don't study for a test and they fail, I can't prevent that because that's helping them develop confidence and to try hard next time. And we've created a culture that everybody wins a trophy. No, that we don't want to hurt feelings. We don't want emotions to be upset. And so this safetyism is actually counterintuitive, and we're finding that it's working against us.
There's this line for parents of don't want our children to be hurt or to struggle. Neither one of us is saying that you should just let your 2-year-old run out in the street. We are saying be wise in this, but also we can't protect our children from everything. What our children really need is for us to walk alongside them as they struggle in early childhood. My example would be when you're sitting down to a lunch table with a table full of 3-year-olds, many of them cannot open a zip top baggie. It doesn't mean we just keep doing it for them. Like at 3, they are developing the skills to grab a hold of that Ziploc baggie and pull it apart. It requires some strength they might not have yet. But as we let them struggle a little, they develop that strength. Even if at the beginning of the school year, they're not able to open that zip top baggie. Give them a month. Let them struggle a little and help them open it. And then let them struggle a little longer and help them open it. In a month, they're strong enough, both their grasp and their shoulders, because we let them struggle a little bit. And I think that little example is how we can look at the rest of raising kids too. Will we let them ride their bike down a hill before we are ready? Because as a mom, I often was like, don't do that. Yeah, my kids were totally capable. It was me that was fearful, but they were totally capable of doing it. And when they did it, the confidence built up in them was definitely worth that moment of me gasping. That's a hard line for mamas to find and for teachers in the classroom too. You want kids to be safe, for sure. And do I want kids throwing a fit in my class because they can't do it? Because honestly, that's what little children do. They throw a fit when they can't do something just yet. Another place for them to practice self-control. If they never have to practice it, how are they going to get good at it?
Exactly.
Safety sounds like it would be a good thing, right? We're keeping our kids safe, but we've gone too far and we're keeping them so sheltered that they never have to feel any kind of discomfort. I had a young mama recently say she has a newborn, as newborns do, was crying quite a bit. And she said, someone asked her, hey, do you ever put him down? She was wearing him in a little pouch, which I love. There's something to be said about being so close to your baby. But she said, when he cries, I just can't take it. My heart just can't take it when he cries. So I told him so he doesn't have to cry. That sounds beautiful. However, real attachment happens when you respond to a child's distress, not when you prevent a child's distress. Babies naturally get hungry. They need to be fed. They need to be diapered. They get tired, all those things. There will come a natural rhythm of distress that as a mama or a caregiver, you respond to. That's where true attachment actually happens. We've created this super safe environment where I never want my baby to feel any discomfort. We're not strongly attaching to our young children and not helping them learn those skills of self-soothing or patience in waiting. Now, newborns aren't going to be patient in waiting, but by the time they get 2, 3, and 4, they need to start learning that waiting feels uncomfortable. It's part of life. So we need to start practicing those skills. This idea of safety has prevented us from seeing that. We're seeing elementary age kids and teenagers who are super entitled because they've never had to struggle for anything. We've prevented their struggle.
They become, instead of strong and having agency. I like the example I read about a tree. Let's say there's a tree in the torrential rain being swayed so much, but it's not breaking. The roots dig down deep, solidify, and make it stronger rather than weaker.
Yes.
You have that same tree in a greenhouse, sheltered from the storms, and it won't be as strong as that tree in the ground. And I think if we shelter our children so much, I'm guilty. I want to protect my children with everything.
Sure.
But we've created fragile children who don't know how to resolve conflict because we've done it for them. We've created such a safe pathway that they've never had to experience conflict or adversity. We need to establish these norms in our home where it is safe, where they can learn and we can instruct them to where they launch out like our children have, launching to the world, and that they can handle situations. We'll always be their coach and help them through things, but doing it for them is counterintuitive and doesn't help.
When I think about your tree example, I love that tree example. I've used it so many times this year. Our conference theme at ECCN this year is flourish. And we're using the scripture from Colossians 2:7, which I just pulled up on my phone while you were talking, that says, let your roots grow down into him and let your lives be built on him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught and you will overflow with thankfulness. the reality for all of us in nature and in humanity. Trees don't dig their roots down deep unless there's no water at the surface. As long as there's water at the surface, they stay surface level. Digging your roots down deep comes with struggle. For us as adults, for children, we dig our roots down deep when we have to. It's in the struggle that our roots really grow down deep. What scripture says is in that digging is where our faith will actually be built up. That's where our strength comes from. It's like working out, right? If you're working out and you never get sore, you're probably also not getting stronger. The strength is actually coming from your muscles tearing and rebuilding. That's hard to see in all ages of children, right? In a 2-year-old, it looks like letting them struggle a little bit to put their shoes on when they really can't yet. As a teenager, letting them fail that test and not going to the teacher to intervene for them, saying they had a football game last night, so they didn't have time to study. Letting them struggle through that. Letting them resolve conflict with friends, whether they're 4 or whether they're 14. Letting them figure out, okay, how can I make this right? What's my part in this struggle? There's a depth that's built there in that struggle that then results in a buildup in the surface, right? That's how we grow and flourish. That's how branches and leaves and buds and flowers and fruit, that's how that comes, is from us struggling and digging down deep to find our source, which, I mean, for us, obviously our source is Jesus. And so I think there's such a spiritual lesson involved here as well. And it's not just changing technology habits, but it really is like, where are you helping these children dig down and find true strength and nourishment and value in Jesus and not in what other people think via technology, likes and comments and shares? Where are we helping them in their struggle, coming alongside them to say, hey, you can do this. I believe in you. Whether it's opening a Ziploc baggie or navigating a friendship as a teenager, where are we coming alongside them to say, hey, I'm going to let you struggle a little bit and then I'm going to help you. I'm going to let you struggle a little bit more, and then I'm going to help you until you are strong enough to do this on your own. But I believe that you are strong enough to do this on your own. And I think we've got to, as adults in these children's lives, teenagers' lives, and in parents' lives, even as parents, right? Can we help them in the struggle to say, hey, I'm a mama with boys in their 20s. So can I walk alongside you as a mama with children that are babies or elementary or teenagers? Yes. And also, I see your struggle and I am walking with you. You're not walking the struggle alone. We're walking with you to help you in that. Screen time is one of those things, but it's more than that. We have to create community for some of these children, teenagers, mamas, to be able to dig down deep.
Very well said. I love the image of the tree and in strengthening these children so that they can. And what a great sense of accomplishment for them when they do achieve, when they open that juice box by themselves, how proud they'll be of themselves and knowing that they can do it again and again and then move on to bigger achievements and bigger tasks. And so, yeah, we don't want to steal that from them or deprive them of that.
In the classroom, I don't think we do it intentionally. We don't think about stealing an opportunity from them. We're just opening these baggies so all these kids can eat. But if we'll pause for just a minute and recognize that they actually need to build these skills, it makes our job easier in the long run. I don't have to open 10 baggies. I can just stand back and have a fun conversation or sing a song instead. Things that for us as adults, we think it's easier if we just do it for them real quick, but it's actually not. In the long run, it's detrimental to them and is going to continue to take up all your time and energy too.
Right. Good.
Gosh, Jennifer, we covered a lot of ground in this episode.
We did.
I typically end every episode with one question. And that is, our podcast is called Reimagine Childhood. I would love to hear from you. If there was one thing you could reimagine about our current approach to childhood, what would that be?
I think we need to allow children to play and discover through play, because they say the work of childhood is play. Your job as toddlers, as preschoolers, as elementary age children, let them have free play. Let them be bored, discover, climb those trees, and do those things as they discover who they are, but also what they're capable of. Say children just need to play. Let them go outside, experience what it feels like to have rain on them, dig in the dirt, play in the mud. It's okay to get dirty. To experience life and just play.
I think that freedom to discover who they are and what they like to do and what they're good at and maybe what they're not so good at or what they have to work harder for is the gift, honestly, that God would give us so many options of what to do and how to do it. And really, the only way we can truly discover it is to try it.
Yeah. God created the earth to be a playground, the trees and the dirt, the
Yeah.
little eggs and the caterpillars. Let them experience life and wonder, create a sense of wonder and awe as they play. Engage them in that conversation. As they see a ladybug, let them examine it, look at it, let it crawl on their fingers, really experience all that life has to.
God's given us so much to discover about Him from early childhood through adulthood and into senior adulthood. When you get to talk to people who've lived into their 70s and 80s and 90s, you realize like even they are still discovering the wonder of who God is, how He's created us, and how He has established connection and relationship with us. I love that we can foster that wonder and discovery in young children that hopefully will stick with them through decades of living.
Do this, right?
Yeah.
We get to walk alongside children, and what a joy it is.
What a privilege, truly. Jennifer, thanks so much for your time today and for your research about screen time and its effects in child development and in parents and in ministry. I'm grateful for your expertise and for your willingness to share.
Thank you, Monica. I appreciate you as well. Thanks for all you do.
Could you tell we're both a little passionate about this topic? We really want to help strengthen families and children to develop into who God has intended them to be, to flourish. Y'all, media and technology are here to stay. They're not going away. But would you pause for a moment and consider how media and tech use are affecting you as an adult? Do you find yourself mindlessly scrolling like I do when I'm watching a baseball game with my husband? Or do you sometimes have an irresistible urge to pick up your phone at every red light? I am confessing to you today that I almost always pick up my phone and check something at every red light. It's just not healthy, y'all. What are you going to do differently? How can you help the young children in your care and their parents to make different choices in screen use? We're not saying cut it out altogether, but how can we do this in a way that benefits our families and us? Check out a new course in our on-demand library called Counteracting the Effects of Screen Time in the Classroom. I walk you through some practical ways that we can help children build the skills that they're missing out. And let's make a pact together to help children learn skills, reevaluate our own use of screens, and make decisions that lead to all of our flourishing. Would you join us? We'd love to have you along on this journey. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Reimagine Childhood with Early Childhood Christian Network, where you'll get practical ideas to implement in your classroom today. You might even be challenged to change your mind about a few things, and you'll always be reminded that your work matters. If you love this episode, would you subscribe and then share it with your coworkers, friends, and family? You can connect with us on a regular basis on Instagram at Early Childhood Christian Net. That's Early Childhood Christian Net. And on Facebook at Early Childhood Christian Network. Remember to visit our show notes for more great resources. We're so glad you're here. See you next time.